It's late July, and here in North America, we're experiencing some heat waves because, well, as I mentioned, it's late July, summertime. We always have heat waves. But according to National Public Radio, which you pay for, by the way, they claim that these would be virtually impossible without climate change. I mean, they have a study that tells them that. And of course, Hillary Clinton, she took that information and decided to tell you that if you're feeling the heat, if you're uncomfortable, if you're miserable, thank a MAGA Republican for it. You can't make it up. Joining us now to talk some sanity to this insanity is Daniel Turner, Executive Director of Power of the Future. Well, there you go. I mean, maybe it's me, but I think summertime, end of July, early August, we always feel it. It's always kind of hot, but no, it's climate change, Daniel Turner.
Yeah, this happens every summer because look, the heat is more oppressive. The heat is more intolerable. We do better in winter because you stay indoors, you make a fire, you put on a coat, and so the heat is, it's a sexier subject to talk about. But it's ridiculous that every summer we do this. Just as a reminder for your great audience, we had in North America the coldest June in over 30 years. It didn't make the news because no one cared. But when you have a couple of hot days in July, hold the press.
Yeah, although let me quibble with you for a minute here because you just said that the heat is intolerable. It's about 98 degrees in Washington, D.C. today, but I tolerated it because I stayed indoors and I was able to plug in an air conditioner and turn it on thanks to electricity and thanks to fossil fuels. So actually, it's quite tolerable thanks to power and innovation and actually drilling for oil and gas.
Yeah, and now you're speaking my language. It's what's made it possible for humanity to flourish. And you look at the correlation between the fossil fuel boom, which started in around 1850, and the population of the world exploding. And the reason why is because we could live in more places, hot and cold, and we could produce enough food for us, and we could come up with medicines and clothing and all sorts of products that made life better. So when you look at what fossil fuels have done, the environmentalists will say the Earth is 2 degrees warmer Celsius and the oceans are 6 inches higher. And even if that were true, I'd say great. Because look at how much humanity has flourished. Look how much we've prospered, and look how much better our quality of life is. Henry VIII would have longed for the type of comfort and privilege we have in our life right now.
This is a great point. If you look at the United States of America, population has absolutely exploded over the last 100 years in places like Arizona, Nevada, Texas, Oklahoma, Florida. That's because of fossil fuels and it's because of air conditioning. And now they're saying, oh, it's so hot in these very same places in the desert that we've got to do away with electricity. We've got to do away with carbon emissions. You do away with carbon emissions, you do away with electricity, and you literally can't live in those places.
Absolutely. And the cold is what kills more people than the heat. And that's important to remember because yeah, for some reason we don't like the heat and we feel it a little bit more oppressively. But we tolerate the heat a lot better than we tolerate the cold. 4 times as many people die from cold than from heat. And so when you have this administration which is using heat, using the summer to push an agenda that punishes reliable appliances, reliable energy security, where it's really
Yeah.
felt on the back end is when we get to the winter, because that's when it becomes, quite frankly, deadly.
Well, and that's another point. You're right. I mean, they look at these temperatures and they say this is why we have to do something about climate change. And how do they address it? They make gas more expensive for people who are working and trying to commute and drive their pickup to their job as a plumber or an HVAC repairman. Oh, and speaking of HVAC, they want to do away with your oil and natural gas heater so that you can't warm your home in the wintertime. And they want to do away with your gas stove. In other words, they want to do away with all the conveniences that we middle American, middle income, middle class people love in this country, but they never address, the private jets or the giant limousines that the rich elites who love pushing climate change agenda on the rest of us always get to enjoy.
Yeah, well, that's very similar that we saw with COVID a couple of years ago. How if you were the decision makers uh, pushing these lockdowns, you were also exempted from those lockdowns, and your excuse was, "I'm important. I'm the governor. I have to get my hair done. I have to go to dinner with important constituents." And you'll see the same with the climate agenda. John Kerry still has his private jet. Of course, he blames his wife for it, but he still uses it.
Right.
Joe Biden flies to Delaware every weekend for his getaways. He's never once said, "I'm just going to stay in the White House for a smaller carbon footprint." So the elites
Yeah.
will always exempt themselves from the carbon punishment that they want the rest of us to endure.
By the way, I want to reach a point in my life where I have to blame my wife for the private jet in our house, right? I mean, God, honestly, I mean, say what you will about John Kerry, he's doing something right. All right, this then, of course, Daniel Turner brings us to the natural transition to eating bugs. Take a look
Yeah.
at this. It was just what 4 years ago when NPR said that companies face an uphill battle trying to get Americans to eat bugs because no one likes to eat bugs. Now in 2023, they say it's a right-wing conspiracy theory about eating bugs, and oh, by the way, it's racist. But no, no, no. They really do want to push eating bugs on us because they claim cows and cow flatulence contributes to climate change. Isn't that right?
Absolutely, and they're punishing the farming industry, particularly in Europe, very very aggressively. We saw what happened in Sri Lanka just last year when they finally they caught up to all of their going green movement, caught up to them, and the country was in absolute starvation, and there was a revolution. And so, yeah, that hasn't hit America yet, but it will. And just as your audience may remember, it was not long ago, pre-COVID, back when times were a little bit more normal, that presidential candidates talked very comfortably about banning certain foods, about regulating cheeseburgers. Or they would show them at the Iowa State Fair and ask questions: should we be able to ban cheeseburgers? And Kamala Harris, the senator at the time, said, "Well, we have to have a conversation about that." So
Right.
forcing bugs on us would be nothing surprising because this mentality thinks they can regulate every aspect of your life, including your diet.
But Daniel, by the way, full disclosure here, Buck Sexton and I, one night in Mexico City, had deep fried crickets on our guacamole. All right. It wasn't to save the planet, though. It was because we had been drinking tequila all day. It happened. We did it as a joke. But at the White House, when they have a state dinner, or at Davos, when they're meeting to inflict climate policies on the rest of the world, they always dine out on steak or lobster or maybe pheasant. They don't have bugs on the menu, do they?
No, they don't, and they also have these summits in the most beautiful cities. The next one, which is going to happen in just a couple months, the COP28 is going to be in Dubai. Of course, Dubai has nothing to do with fossil fuels, right? So that makes perfect sense. But they never have
Right.
these climate
And they never
summits.
use air conditioning in Dubai, God
No,
forbid.
never. Never at all. But they never have these summits in Raqqa, right? They seem to avoid Bangladesh. They never go to the Congo. I just want to know, when is John Kerry ever going to have a climate summit? Not in Paris, not in Bilderberg, not in Geneva, not in Dubai, but in one of these third world countries that he's trying to save from the wraths of climate change. They never seem to care about those countries enough to actually go there.
That's right. No, he'll have those summits there when hell freezes over, which of course it never will because of climate change. We'll have to leave it there. Daniel Turner, Power of the Future. Thanks for joining us, sir.
You got it. Thanks, Larry.
I'm going to crank up my air conditioning now, just to tick off a liberal. There's more to come on O'Connor tonight. Keep it here at Salem News Channel.